This is Late Night Health. This is the radio show that cares about the most important part of your life, your health. Hi, I'm Mark Alyn, and along with the insane Daryl Wayne, during the next 2 hours, we're going to cover just a wide variety of topics that affect each and every one of us in one way or another. We're going to be talking about your pH, we're going to be talking about hope, and we're going to be talking about choices that we all make in our lives. That's what's going to happen on this edition of Late Night Health. But first, we go across the pond to my friend who is a very patient woman. Her name is Pat Duckworth, and she is the author of Hot Women Rock, How to Discover Your Midlife Entrepreneurial Mojo. And I want to start out by saying it's not only for women, your book, okay? This is also for men, isn't it?
Absolutely. I specialize in helping women at midlife, but men at midlife have a lot of the same problems, and often they're just kind of joked about. You know, a man has a midlife crisis, he has to run off and get a Porsche or a motorbike or, you know, a new young woman. But women go through all this physical stuff and feel real changes in their lives and their bodies. But men get very similar symptoms to women. So, yeah, the things that I talk about and the sort of decisions that we have to make around retirement or finding a new purpose in life, that's men as well as women.
Women can also find younger men. What do they call a woman who?
Cougars?
Yeah, cougars. That's it. Women can become cougars. Let's talk about that word, retirement. It's a word I don't like. I personally don't like, because I don't envision stopping what I do because I love it so much. Yet, I guess it's my purpose is to share information. So I have a purpose. When people stop working, they lose that purpose. It changes, doesn't it?
I think it depends what you were doing before retirement and what you consider retirement to be. Now, I worked in the civil service, in public service for over 30 years, got to my mid-50s, and I had the chance to take what is called early retirement, which meant that I could get my retirement benefits. But at 55, my plan was never to go and sit in a chair somewhere and watch daytime TV. I took it as an opportunity to do something new in my life. And I think if you've got a plan, if you've really thought about what you want to do when you stop doing the 9-to-5 job, if that's what you've had, then retirement can be a very positive thing. You don't actually stop working, except, of course, you know, you're doing something you love, so it's not really work. If you stop doing that 9-to-5 job, there's no plan, you lose all those friends that you had at work, you lose the structure of your day, your routine, then that can be very detrimental to your health, your physical health and your mental health as well.
We hear a lot, and it's in the news a lot, that somebody who retires, who wants to watch daytime TV, maybe travel a little bit, but because they lose their purpose, they end up losing their lives. I mean,
yeah.
We hear about this a lot for both men and women.
Yeah, you hear these guys and it's so sad. They've worked so hard all their lives. And as you say, they had a little plan about traveling a bit and just taking it a bit easy, pottering around the garden. But they've lost all of that support system they had. They've lost those colleagues, and suddenly their brain just kind of switches off. And I just think it's terribly sad that then they don't have any life after that. And, you know, you get to 50, 60 now, you've got another 40, 50 years left in you. You've got to make it a good time.
And, of course, your book, Hot Women Rock, is one of the better ways to do that. Recent studies have shown that both men and women identify themselves in their brains as what they do for a living, right? So at 50 or 60, after being a civil servant, can I become a clinical hypnotherapist?
I've proved it, Mark, because, I'm not saying that transition didn't have its moments of grief. I had invested 30 years of my life into my career and climbing up the grades to do what I was doing. So there was a lot of investment in it. But at the end of it, when I was at this kind of pinnacle where I'd always wanted to be, suddenly I wasn't enjoying myself. And I thought, I don't want to be in my mid-50s, possibly doing this for another 10 years and being unhappy. That's just not what life's about. So the first day that I was at home, instead of being in an office with a team, with, things being done for me, the first day I was by myself, it was a bit of a shock. But then I just moved into my life and enjoying everything new.
And at the same time, you've taught yourself new skills. You're a social media person. You've taught yourself additional computer skills. You speak in front of people. Were you a public speaker when you were working in civil service?
I did. I used to run training courses. That's how I found that I really enjoyed doing it. I tell you, my first ever training course that I ran was called the Valuation of Sewage Treatment Works for Business Rates Purposes. It was a humdinger, Mark,
Oh, I'll bet it was. That sounds really exciting. You have been involved in public speaking.
Yeah, and that's what I would say to people as they're thinking about a new job. Think about your transferable skills. So I'd learned how to put courses together. I'd learned how to do public speaking. I was doing writing because I was having to write papers and training courses. I'd had to learn some computer skills. Obviously, with IT, it just moves on all the time. But what you have to tell yourself is, I could learn it once, I can learn the next thing. So when you're thinking about your next career, what can you bring into it that you already know? That's really important.
And when you went 180 degrees, did you not?
360, I think.
360. You are now empowering women. You work with them as a clinical hypnotherapist. That's what we call them here in the States. So you can do everything. You help people, everything from weight loss to stop smoking, or potentially you can, as well as finding their own purpose, I would think.
Yeah, and that whole thing about finding their purpose, even if I'm working with them on weight loss or smoking or confidence, I'm always going to ask them about their purpose, because that is like the chief executive of your brain, that's the thing that's running the show, what you believe your purpose to be. And some of my clients, it doesn't matter how old they are, they've never really thought of that. Nobody's ever asked them the question. For some, it's really clear they've known since they were young what it was they wanted to do.
But for others, in other words, they knew what they wanted to do, but they ended up in civil servant. They ended up being an attorney, though they wanted to be a gardener or a gardening architect.
Yeah, absolutely. And so there's that frustrated little voice inside them. A lot of people go into careers because it's what their parents wanted for them, or it's what their teachers said that they should do, or they went to university and their tutor said, oh, what you're good at is this. It wasn't what the little voice inside them was saying, but they got guided into it. So you've got to start tuning into that voice about what your passion is.
And you can find what your passion is because there are a lot of questions that you can answer in Hot Women Rock, learning how to literally discover your midlife entrepreneurial mojo. I love that title, by our guest, Pat Duckworth. And Pat lives in England, but she travels throughout the world. I know that she's been in the States at least twice this year, and I think you made a trip or a pilgrimage, if you will, to India as well.
Yeah, I was speaking at a conference in India and I was talking on just this subject because, India is very entrepreneurial. You've got all these young people and older people who are looking for something new to do. So it was exactly the right subject to talk about there.
In taking a look at identifying oneself, to discover your purpose, can you change that purpose? Does that purpose change over the years? In other words, being an attorney for 25 or 30 years, working in civil service, doing whatever it is that a person does, that they can literally change direction. Is it easy or not? And I need you to answer quickly because we're going to take a break, and when we come back we will continue talking about Hot Women Rock, how to discover your entrepreneurial mojo.
So very quickly, you have to look at what's behind that. I mean, an attorney might be an attorney because they want to help people. Their purpose is in helping people. Or perhaps it's something to do with the environment. Perhaps that's the law that they want. Or perhaps it's around helping children. When you dig a little bit deeper, you find that there's something behind that career that fires them up, that motivates them to do what they want to do. That's what you've got to find, that passion.
I'm Mark Alyn, along with Pat Duckworth. We will be back. Join us, of course, at latenighthealth.com. More coming up.
If you or someone you love suffers from drug addiction, now is the time to utilize your private health insurance PPO plan. If eligible, receive up to $30,000 or more in substance abuse benefits with low or no out-of-pocket cost. We are the National Treatment Network, the premier drug and alcohol treatment referral service operating 24/7. We help connect you with facilities nationwide that accepts PPO private health insurance for substance abuse. If you have PPO substance abuse coverage and you need immediate admittance to a medical detox or residential rehab treatment center, call us now. Call our live referral helpline today. The call is free. This program is not available to Medicare or Medicaid customers.
Call 800-296-1252. 800-296-1252. 800-296-1252. That's 800-296-1252.
Are you being audited and do you owe the IRS $10,000 or more in back taxes? Is the IRS threatening to take more of your money? Don't fight the IRS alone. The Tax Doctor is here to help you negotiate a lower tax bill. The IRS can freeze your assets and seize your bank accounts, but you can stop these IRS actions. The Tax Doctor will fight for you using industry secrets that can stop any IRS actions, eliminate penalties and interest, and reduce your past tax bill so you pay the IRS less. If you owe $10,000 or more in back taxes, call the Tax Doctor now for a free IRS audit emergency review.
800-663-5107. 800-663-5107. 800-663-5107. That's 800-663-5107.